never put all your eggs into one basket. Now that's a saying that an old boss of mine used to live by. It wasn't that he wasn't adverse to taking the odd risk every now and again, but his thought process was this: if you put everything on one and that didn't work out, you were left with nothing. In other words, he likes to hedge his bets. Now, some people might have seen that as being too cautionary, but in fairness, it worked out quite well for him, because when one thing didn't work out, it meant he hadn't lost everything. It meant he still had something else on which he could rely on. Taking a big gamble is exactly that. It's a big risk, and you risk losing everything. And that might be one of the reasons why Porsche have taken the decision to put their new Macan, their all-electric one, on sale alongside their combustion engine one for the foreseeable future. In other words, they're not taking any risks with this one. Welcome to this week's road test review, or welcome to the new Porsche Macan, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I start on this week's road test review of Porsche's new Macan, time for a bit of an apology. I am actually filming this in a multi-storey car park. Now, this isn't to be atmospheric or particularly clever when it comes to cinematography. It's purely and simply this: the weather outside is atrocious. This weekend, the UK is experiencing Storm Bert, and while some parts of it are having terrible flooding and big snowfalls, round about where I live, we've got wind. It's just absolutely blowing, as we say in Scotland, a hoolie outside, 55 to 65 mile an hour winds, and there's no way I'd be able to film outside with the car. So apologies for that, but we thought it important to bring you the video anyway. Now, let's get back to normal proceedings. Before we start the road test review, I would obviously ask to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you do enjoy it, despite the surroundings, then of course, give it a little thumbs up, and don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of the cars we review, such as Porsche's new Macan, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, Porsche, when they decided to go all electric before, they decided to launch a completely new model, the Taycan. And this is what I'm talking about not putting your eggs into one basket. In other words, if the Taycan hadn't worked for Porsche, it's not like they had electrified and tarnished, dare I suggest, one of their halo products like the Boxster or the 911. Or it was a dipping in their toe in the water type of exercise, the Taycan. And it did work. It's been a very, very popular car. But there's only so many times that they can introduce new models. That's the issue. I mean, they've already got sports cars, they've got SUVs, they've got saloons, they've got estates, they've got GT cars. So where were they going to turn next? Well, of course, the medium-sized SUV going all electric is a very popular marketplace, and it's obviously a big marketplace for Porsche because they sell their combustion engine car in that market, and it's the second best selling model after the Cayenne, and it's been on sale for over 10 years. But they still weren't quite sure if the world was ready for a fully electric Macan, obviously, because the new electric Macan will stay in the showrooms alongside the combustion engine ones until well into 2025, perhaps to get people used to the idea of an all-electric Macan. But here's the thing: is it any good? I mean, the Macan is a great car, as I say, obviously it sells in the bucket load. Are people going to be ready for an all-electric one? But as always, let's take a look at the main points of the new Porsche Macan. Well, like I said, this is the second electric vehicle offered by Porsche after the Taycan, and it'll sit alongside the current combustion engine Macan in the showrooms until 2025 at the earliest. 4 models are available: a single motor Macan, the all-wheel drive Macan 4, the Macan 4S, and range-topping Macan Turbo. All Macans come with a 100 kilowatt-hour battery and offer a range of up to 398 miles on the combined WLTP cycle, depending on the model. Power ratings vary from 340 PS in the standard Macan all the way up to 639 PS in the Turbo. And prices start from just £6,000 to £8,500 for the standard car and climb to just under £97,000 for the Turbo before options. Now, like I said, this is Porsche's second best-selling offering after the Cayenne, so this is not a car that they can afford to get wrong. Is the world ready for the Macan to go electric? Is it still going to have that same sprinkle of magic that makes the current combustion engine car as popular as it is? Well, of course, the only way we can find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. It's the AutoEV one. Now, as always, we're going to start with how the car looks. And I, for one, think it looks good. I really do. I think Porsche have done a great job with this car. Now, let's be honest, the Macan isn't their best styling effort, in fairness. The combustion engine one. It's not a bad looking little car, but I certainly don't think it's the best looking. But what I think they've done with the electric version is they've really sort of like moved it on. You can see that it is a Macan in some respects, but made it much more one for the future, which is exactly what they're setting out to do. Interestingly, this is not the lights here. This is not the main lights. They've done a bit of a BMW here, like BMW have done with the i7. Well, these are the DRLs and turn indicators. And then what you've actually got then is your main lights are down at the bottom there. But I'd suggest that Porsche have done a better job of it than BMW have done, in fairness. You've got these lovely big high-rise wings here. So when you're sitting in the car and you're looking out, you can see the two wings just arc over the tops of the front wheels, very 911-esque, with this bonnet that just sort of comes down at this lower bonnet into this more pointed nose. You get a very aggressive front splitter. I don't think I've ever seen a front splitter as aggressive looking as that on an SUV. I mean, that is properly aggressive looking. You can option up an off-road package like you can with the Taycan Cross Turismo, which changes that. But even so, that is mega splitter. Down at the bottom, you've also got your cooling, which is there. You've got some tech as well, which obviously for your radar guided cruise control in there. Number plate, we'd expect to find it. Your inset Porsche crest there, which is different on the turbo. Because turbos now get I think it's more like sort of a platinum finish badging on them, but that's nice, it sits in the front there. But I think we're off to a good start because I really do think this is a good looking car. Certainly from the front, I'm not convinced all of it's quite as good, but I think that could just be me. But anyway, let's take a further look round and see how else we think. Oh, and by the way, this colour is called Provence, in case you're wondering. Yeah, I'd call it lavender, but it's Provence seemingly. Now, as you move around the side of the car, you can tell that obviously it's a Porsche SUV. It's very, very similar in terms of its look, as I say, the generic look of the car to the current combustion engine Macan. It's not the same in dimensions. It sits on a new platform, so they haven't just electrified a combustion engine Macan. It is a new platform that it sits on, and we'll talk a lot about that when we get to the usability section. It's got a slightly lower centre of gravity as well, and all the weight is kept down in the car. I think it's also got a slightly longer wheelbase as well. I might be wrong on that, but I think it has. Anyway, 20-inch wheels come as standard, but you can option up to 22s, depending obviously on what you want, and depending obviously on the model. I think 20s are absolutely fine. Michelin Pilot Sport tyres on the car, good tyres. Usual Porsche standout door mirrors, which means you've got this little quarter light here, gives you extra visibility, that's good. No flush door handles. You've got big chunky standout door handles on it, and these roof rails are an option. So you've got to pay extra for roof rails. And that's something I'm going to talk an awful lot about later on, is options and stuff. Talking of options, this down here is a deletable option as far as I remember, and you can also change what it is. This is a black textured side blade that's on this particular car, but I think you can have its carbon fibre or a greyed out version of things like that. And then you get to the back, and it's the roof line that I don't know, it is more of that kind of coupe-like roof line. Than you get on the current, combustion engine Macan, because obviously they don't do a coupe Macan as such like they do with the Cayenne. So there is more of that more kind of steeply raked, and there's no sort of like roof spoiler to balance it out at the back. It just falls away into that more coupe-like rear end. So it's just me, I know that. I'm not a big lover of coupe SUVs, but I don't know if that's as well resolved as I think it could be, but maybe that is just me. But let's take a look around the back of it and see what we think about the rest of it. So it's this rear end of the car here that I'm talking about. It's very smooth. There's no roof spoiler at the top there. It's very smooth, straight from the roof, straight into that sort of like flush rear window, and it goes down. Here is the rear spoiler, which is one of these deployable ones that comes up at speed. How effective they are, roundabout sort of like, driving around a multi-storey car park in the middle of Windsor, I don't really know, and I'm not really sure about them if I'm honest. I don't really like it on the 911 either, so on an SUV, I'm not as sold on it, but I get it, I get why they've done it, and I get obviously that some people do like it. What I do like, however, is Porsche's light signature. I think this works really, really well. This beautifully thin light bar that runs across the back, and then the light's all neatly integrated into this sort of like black strip that runs across there. And of course, you get the beautiful Porsche, the three-dimensional Porsche lettering right across the back. I do like that. Of course, you get a little reverse camera, which is tucked up there, right next to the boot opening button that's there, and of course your model designation there, which is a deletable thing. You can delete that if you wish, obviously. Now you get your low set number plate down at the bottom there, and of course your normal rear diffuser here. A lot of aero work on the car, making the car as smooth as possible, making it slip through the air as efficiently as possible. Part of the reason why the rear end probably looks like this, in fairness. So that's a nice bit of area there, just allows airflow out of the back there. On the whole, I do quite like it. It's quite spec dependent. It will depend, I think, on the model, the size of wheels, maybe even the colour that you go for, you know, to make whether or not it will look more attractive than maybe, say, other ones. But look, that's just my opinion. What's yours? What do you think? Does it tickle your pickle? Do you prefer this to, say, something like, say, a Polestar 4 or, you know, a BMW iX3 or something like that? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Well, it's quite a practical car as well, at 540 litres, which is a bigger boot than you get from the combustion engine car. And if you fold the rear seats down, because they're split into a 40-20-40 split, it'll take total capacity up to 1,348 litres. However, just be aware, if you do option up the Bose audio system, which this car has, you get a massive big amplifier there. So that boot space is actually not quite as large as the numbers I've just suggested. And it does eat into, you know, so obviously the storage in the back of it, because there's no underfloor storage there. There's a little tray alongside for things like, you know, extra number plates, because this car has the towing hook on it as well. Now, I'll talk about towing a little bit later on. You can fold the rear seats down from the latches inside the boot, which I do like, obviously. And what I will say is the load entry is flat, so lifting stuff in and sliding it in is nice and flat. And you get these nice sort of metal chrome bits here just to help slide things in. You get other things such as the little nets either side there. There's also an elasticated strap there and some tie-down hooks in there, which I think are really important. A lot of manufacturers, or some manufacturers, don't fit them, and I think they are important. Because if you don't like stuff rolling around the boot, you can just put a nice elasticated net over it. You get some little hooks up the side there as well, so it's a relatively practical car as well. But it's not just at the back that it's practical, because remember, it is a Porsche. Because under the front bonnet, there's 84 litres of storage space. Now that's quite decent in fairness, you know, as you'd expect. You know, there's enough to sort of like pop your charging cables in here, or, you know, like a soft bag. You can get like a rucksack in there, or a dirty jacket if you've been out walking the dog or something. So again, or, you know, as most people will probably use it for charging cables. So yeah, decent amount of storage, I would suggest, overall. Right, rear space. It's okay, actually, it's not bad. I mean, you know, it's not a huge big 4x4, but it's all right. I can get my feet underneath my driving position, which is quite low. There's certainly enough knee room. There's just enough headroom for me. Two things to bear in mind. First of all, I am quite short. Second of all, this car does have the optional panoramic glass sunroof fitted to it. Apologies, I know it's quite dark, apologies, but as I say, the weather, I can't be outside, the weather's too ridiculous, the camera will blow over. So I am in a dark car park. So yes, so the headlining does come quite close to my head. If you're a 6-foot rear passenger, I think that's where you're going to see struggle, but and that's more to do with that coupe-like rear styling. But see, there's certainly enough foot room and leg room for me. I don't feel my legs are being pushed up too far. As I say, remember, it's a bespoke electric architecture the car's sitting on. There's a relatively flat floor. There is a little bit of a raised tunnel there, but I mean, I'm talking about, you know, like maybe half an inch or so. There isn't, no, I'm saying there isn't connectivity. Hang on a second. I can't believe that Porsche don't have connectivity somewhere in the back here. There must be. It used to be sort of like at the edge of the seat of the Taycan, but I'm not finding it. Whoa, Porsche. Oh, hang on, no, it's there. Stupid boy. 2 USB-C ports there. There we go. A tiny little tray that might just fit a pack of fruit tellers. 2 face vents, which is good. You do have, he says, an armrest that folds down with 2 cup holders in it, which is also good. And remember, as I say, you can fold that centre section down if you're carrying a longer load, but still need 2 rear passengers in. Isofix points, really easy to get to. They're just covered with these little plastic bungs that you just take off and they clip in. I'll do it like that. And you do get door bins that are shaped for a water bottle, but pretty much nothing else. But at least you've got something. And then of course the nets on the backs of the seats here. I think Porsche call it a 4+1 seating configuration, where this middle section is not particularly big, but there is a belt for a third person. But that's not ideal perhaps, but certainly the two outer people, you get some really nicely sculpted backrests, comfortable head restraints. So no, on the whole, it's all right, you know, for the size of SUV that it is. It's just you're not probably going to get 3 adults across here, and just make sure they're not particularly tall adults because, as I say, headroom's getting a little bit tight. But the other thing I didn't mention as well was, look, frameless doors. That's quite cool in a 4-door SUV, quite like that. But yeah, nothing too drastic to worry about back here, but it's certainly not the biggest in the class, but certainly nowhere near the smallest. Now, up front, well, it's very Taycan-like, you know, so, and very new Porsche-like, you know, new Cayenne is very similar to this sort of style that you have here. So you've got, like the Taycan, your hoodless binnacle, if you like, where you've got the 3 big clear dials in front of you. You've got your speed right bang in the centre, which has got, like, surrounding it sort of like a power meter, if you like, you know, where obviously if you're on power or charge. On the right there's a configurable screen depending obviously on what you want it to show you. You can have it sort of like, oh, hang on a second, you can have it show, it's probably not going to show me because the car's got the door open at the moment, but you can have it, oh, here we go, there we are, you can have it with your media playing up there if you want. What else can you have? That you can have the navigation as well. He says, please select content. I'm trying to. Yeah, there we go. So there's, you know, trip meter there as well, with battery percentage. You've got sport chrono you can pop in there, trip, as I say, route guidance, or you can have your media playing up there. So that's quite cool. And then over on the left is effectively your battery gauge, you know, for how much state of charge you've got left. Range is down at the bottom there, usual bits and pieces all round. Very clear, nice crisp font that they use. The actual graphics themselves are really bright, they're really easy on the eye, and they're really easy to see at a glance, which I do like. However, you don't get a head-up display unless you pay extra, and that's, as I say, something that I will talk about a lot. But yeah, I mean, come on Porsche, head-up display, surely that would have been ideal as well. Anyway, there we go. You get this central infotainment screen here, which is really nice and slick to use. Obviously, you get standard smartphone mirroring, you know, like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, that's in there as well, and all your sort of, like, you know, settings and stuff there in here. So if you want to go into your car settings to set up your drive mode, your chassis, and I will talk a lot about that when we're out driving the car. But all of that can be done in here. You can extend the spoiler if you really want, you know, it just puts it up. What I quite like about it is the graphics, you know, so when things happen, you know, they actually see the graphics there. That's a really nice little neat thing. So there we go. Press the button to move the spoiler. Okay, move spoiler. There we are. Is that moving the spoiler? There we go, hopefully. There we are. Yeah, so you can go in there, and then obviously there's things like your driver assistance as well, speed limits, warning, that type of thing, comfort, you know, for setting the ambient lighting, you know, because obviously you've got ambient lighting, the driver's seat and so forth. You get the impression here. A couple of nice things with Porsche, they do things such as turning off speed limit warning and lane keep assist is done via the cruise control stalk, which is down here. By your left knee. So again, it's quite an easy access, so you don't have to go in through all of these menus to try and find the things you want to turn off. So that's quite nice. I do quite like that. And then obviously you get things such as obviously navigation, which you can see here. Porsche's obviously inbuilt one, and obviously it's very quick to respond, very easy, and obviously that will bring you up with charging stations and such like, and you can have it so that it does, you know, sort of like, you know, 3-dimension or 2-dimension, that type of thing. Your usual stuff that you would expect. And then obviously you get, you know, music control as well, Bluetooth, or as I say, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, whatever you need from there. So that's all that. We don't really need to talk too much more about that. You can option up, however, a third screen in front of the passenger, which seems to be the thing with a lot of car manufacturers these days. So if you feel the need to do that, you can. Quite why you'd want to, I'm not entirely sure, unless you just, you know, because it's not a particularly big car. It's not like it's difficult to control this from the passenger seat. But anyway, you can option up a third screen from the for the passenger if you do wish. This area here, I wasn't quite sure about it at first, but I've been using the car over the last few days, and I've started to really appreciate some of the bits and pieces about it. For instance, the physical buttons, you know, because I'm a big fan of physical buttons, so adjusting temperature, you know, is just this lovely, and it's got this lovely little click to it. So it's got a nice kind of knurled metal switch there that just clicks as you move it, which is really nice. And that's for your air conditioning controls there. So they're not controlled from here, they're just this screen down here, or these buttons I should say down here. But there are touch sensitive buttons for things like sort of heated seat, but the whole panel moves. It's a bit like the BMW in the centre, so when you press heated seat, the whole panel itself moves. But that's only sort of like touch sensitive buttons for things like heated seats, syncing it up to bring up the climate menu. So you can have it up there if you want, you can use it up there if you want, but you don't need to, you can do it from there. But there is a physical button as well for volume, for the radio and the media control, which, you know, is nice, a bit Polestar like almost. You know, they've got the physical button there. So there's not too many touch sensitive or screens that you have to use to access quick controls. A lot of it is done on physical buttons, and the stuff that isn't a physical button is actually quite simple to use and quite nice. So I have to admit, it looks quite stark, it looks quite plain at first, but it works. And it's not too distracting, which is what I do like about it. You know, it's not a huge big screen here. It's just this nice, like, thin sort of like screen, and as I say, you don't have to use it for the stuff you might want to use on a daily basis, such as aircon and such like. So that's good. Behind that, you've got storage. I haven't brought anything with me today because I really wasn't sure I was going to get to film. So no suitcases, no coffee cups, but there's 2 cup holders in there, and then there's a storage area in there, but it doesn't cover. There's no cover for it. You can't cover that up, which is a bit of a shame. But there's wireless charging. There's a 15-watt wireless charger which sits in here, and that can be covered, so your mobile can be out of sight. So you can pop it in there and it's charging. You can use your Apple CarPlay, and your mobile's out of sight, just charging away in there. So that's quite cool. Steering wheel, a typical Porsche. You know, really nice, 3-spoke, very simple in its design, you know, just the right amount of buttons on the steering wheel, the very thin spokes, so you get 2 little thumb wheels for adjusting volume and controlling the configuration of that screen there, and then again, you know, for answering phone call, for doing your voice activation, and that's it. You know, again, nothing too much, nothing to distract you from driving. And then you get your drive mode button here, so you get various different drive modes. You've got normal, sport, sport plus, and off-road, depending obviously on how much off-roading you need to do with your Macan electric, but that's what's all in there, and that's just controlled there, but I'll talk about that when we're out actually driving the car. Then you've got the car activates when you sit in the seat, so like everything else, when you sit in it, put your foot on the foot brake, the car is ready to drive off, and there's your transmission lever up here. So like the Taycan, it's this switch up here rather than a lever here, so it frees up space in here. But there is a physical start-stop button as well over on the right hand side. You get things like lights and rear fog lights down by your right knee, so they're tucked away if you don't need to use them. And your column stocks are exactly as you expect to find them, and again, they're typical Porsche, got a nice feel to them, got very sort of like a nice click to them, you know, as you activate them, so that's quite cool. You get auto wipers, auto lights, that type of thing as you'd expect. This one's got they get electric 8-way adjustable seats as standard, but you can enhance that by spending more money, obviously, as you'd expect to find. These seats themselves actually are pretty good. I've not done a really long drive in this car, in fairness. I've done a lot of small, short drives, but they do seem quite supportive. I didn't think they were going to be at first. They didn't look like, you know, they offered a huge amount of lateral support. They look quite flat, but in fairness, they just seem to have the cushioning in the right place that supports you well. You know, and they're just long enough in the squab for me. I'm sure that you can get more, you know, sort of like configurable ones where it's got extendable squabs and that type of thing. But they're okay as standard, they're not bad. And then the control for them is up in the door, you know, your memory position there, and then your usual suspects of, you know, mirrors and electric window switches and that thing, and down there. Right, cool. All that's as you expect to find it, okay? So it's a good interior, it works well, there's a nice use of materials in it as well, and it's built well, as you'd expect. It's a Porsche. It feels solid as you like. You know, there's not a squeak, not a rattle from it, as you'd expect. However, you do have to spend quite a lot of money to get things. You know, I was looking through the options list. £509 for adaptive cruise control. Adaptive, you know, it's got cruise control, but adaptive cruise control is an option. Now, it's not optional in many cars, you know, electric cars at this price level. It's not many optional at many cars below this price, so I'm surprised that it is. You know, things like the head-up display being an option. There's just, you can go crazy. I was looking through the options list last night. You know, what you can, and specking up, you know, if you're bored and you sit on a, you know, manufacturer's configurator like I do at times, you know, you start, oh, I wonder what I would have, you know, I put 25 grand's worth of options on a Macan, just like that. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I do feel some of it maybe should just be standard, you know, adaptive cruise control. Come on, Porsche, that's a bit mean, isn't it? Anyway, that's by the by. As I say, when it comes to the interior, it's typical that you expect from the brand. Everything, there's nothing that shouldn't be here. It all works. It's really nice and clear. I've always thought that with Porsches. You know, my old 944 and 968, you know, every 911 I've driven, they've always got a very clear dashboard in front of you. You can really see it at a glance. You know, if you're driving quickly and you need to see something, all the information's there, and it's no different here. The hooded binnacle I do think works. I like the fact that it is shaped like those oval dashboards that you used to get on the old 1980s cars. That I think works really well. I like the fact that it's not a humongous big screen. It's just enough. You know, and it's slick and it's very quick to respond to everything, and everything works well. And again, like here, the graphics are crisp and clear. I like the fact you get this little panel here for the climate control with the physical switches too. Although there are this, like the ones behind it, which are the, you know, the not touch sensitive, but you know, they are the ones that move, but you get a physical volume button there, and there's a good amount of storage as well. It's just a shame that so much of the stuff is going to be optional on the car, depending on what you want. But in terms of the way that the interior is designed, the way it works, the way it's built, you can't really fault it. It's a shame there isn't a bit more talk of sustainability. That's the other thing, the materials. No real talk of sustainability with it. But anyway, that's by the by. Good interior, typical Porsche. Could be better better equipped as standard, but otherwise hard to fault it. Right, all Macans come with the same size of battery. It's a 100 kilowatt hour unit, but that's its gross capacity, okay? So its usable capacity, I did write it down here, is 95 kilowatt hours. There you go. Now, Porsche says you should be able to see 368 miles on the WLTP combined cycle from this Macan 4. Okay, in fairness, I would think you're probably looking at more likely 300 miles if you're careful with it. Okay, if you hoon it around, you're going to get less than that. If you're a bit more careful with it, or you're only doing local journeys, you might get a little bit more than that. Okay, so that's what I would suggest. Now, I was talking about the platform earlier. So, bespoke electrical architecture with this car. Now, you would have thought that with Porsche being part of Volkswagen Group, it would just sit on the MEB platform like the ID4, ID5, the Audi Q4 e-tron. It doesn't. It sits on Porsche's own platform. It sits on their Porsche's premium platform electric, PPE, oddly enough it's called. Now that incorporates 800 volt architecture, which is excellent. And that means you can get an incredibly fast charge rate at 270 kilowatts into a Macan. And that's the 10 to 80% charge from one of those hyperchargers. That will only take 21 minutes, which is excellent. You know, that's really good. You know, that's like, you know, Kia, you know, Hyundai have been at that level for a while now. A Tesla as well. So it's nice to see Porsche adopt that too. Maybe more impressive number is the fact you can put 75 miles of range into it in just 10 minutes. So if you are on a longer journey and you just need that last little squirt to get you home, 10 minutes, as long as you've got one of those big fast ultra hyperchargers, you can do that, which is excellent. Now, an onboard 11 kilowatt charger is standard. So if you have got access to that faster three-phase electricity, you know, one of those better wall boxes, that's just 10 hours that's going to take. But if you've got a more likely 7 kilowatt wall box like my Anderson one, which oddly enough is Porsche UK's preferred supplier for wall boxes, Anderson, they're one of those 7 kilowatt ones. It's about 15 hours it's going to take to go from flat to full. And the other nice thing is a heat pump is standard. Right, let's get out of the car park, which is a trial in itself because that's one of the tightest car parks around here, and get this thing out on the open road where it belongs. Right, what do we got? Okay, so this is a Macan 4. So dual motor, all-wheel drive. Obviously the Macan range starts with the standard car, which is rear-wheel drive. And this car has, well, its power output is 387 PS as standard, unless you go into launch control, where it ups it to 408 PS to give you a 0 to 60 time of under 5 seconds, which is brisk, shall we say. If you do need to go quicker than that, however, you can buy the oddly titled Macan Turbo, obviously which doesn't have a turbo, which is over 600 PS and will get to 60 in under 4 seconds, which is very brisk, I would suggest. It's more than just numbers, isn't it? That's what we always say, it's how the car feels. Now, this is an interesting thing, and this is something that you do need to be a little bit aware of when you're looking at a Macan electric, because like every Porsche, there are options, okay? And it will depend obviously on the options as to, dare I suggest, how your car will drive. Because you can have things such as Porsche active stability management, you can have coil springs, you can have adaptive dampers, which this car has, you can have air springs, you can have rear wheel steering, which this car has. There's a host of things that you can do to change the way the car feels. And we could be here, well, it could be a whole month's worth of videos if we were reviewing every single Macan option that you could do. So I can only report on what I'm driving, which is this car, which is a Macan 4, which has adaptive dampers. It has the rear steering on the rear axle, steering on the rear axle, but it doesn't have air suspension. It's got active stability management, you know, but there are other things that it doesn't have. Okay, it's got Sport Chrono as well, so there's loads of bits on it. So there we go. Right, but no matter what bits are actually on the car, I'm going to say one thing about it, and that is it feels a very, very mechanical car to drive. And that's what I love about it, okay? Now, when you drive a fast EV, and I've said this time and time again, you know, it is quite easy to make an EV quick. You just dial the motor up, you know, you throw a pile of torque through the motor and it's instantaneous, and you do your 0 to 60 blast and you go, ooh, that's exciting. It is, and the kids love it, and your pals will be all, you know, sort of like, you know, they'll think you're, you know, Max Verstappen or whatever away from the lights and all the rest of it. But the reality is it actually any fun to drive? You know, if you're a driver, if you go out driving, is the car any good when it comes to the twisty stuff? And that's the difference between making a fun electric car and making one that's fast, okay? This is a fun electric car. This is what Porsche do, and do really, really well. They did it with the Taycan, they've done it again here, and I have to say now, it is absolutely brilliant. When you think about a Macan, or when I think about Macans, you know, Porsche Macans, the majority of them, you know, fairly decent engine up front, automatic gearbox or PDK, you know, so there's not really sort of like the interaction with the gear shift to worry about. So in other words, it's more to do with the handling, the body control, the steering, throttle input, that type of thing that makes a Macan fun to drive, not, you know, gear shifts and things like that, you know. And all that's lacking here is the noise from up there. That's all that's lacking. What's underneath here, what's happening down at my feet, and what's happening in the chassis, it's exactly as you'd expect from a Porsche Macan. It feels well engineered. It feels like Porsche know what they're talking about. The one bit that really struck me when I started driving the car was the weight behind the accelerator pedal. You know, when there's, I always find when I get into a car, any new car, and I drive it, there'll be one thing you go, oh, that's odd, or that's different, or that's good, or that's bad, whatever it is. There's always one thing your brain can, or my brain kind of focuses in on, and that was it on this. If you press the accelerator in this car, it feels like the accelerator in a combustion engine Macan. That's the only way that I can really try and describe it to you. So yes, you know, some people will say, oh, EVs don't have soul, they don't have, you know, they don't engage with you as a driver. This does, because normally you're not changing gear in a normal Macan. So to say the only thing that's different is you don't have an engine up at the front, you don't have noise coming out. But the way it steers, the way that it goes around a corner, the way that the steering reacts to your input, the way that the chassis feels underneath me feels exactly like a Macan should. And that is the real difference with how Porsche build electric cars to how some other people build electric cars. And that's what I mean. So, going on from that, let me expand a little bit. So as I say, we have a very deliberate, mechanical feeling accelerator pedal. You've really got to push it. You know, when you do push it, it does pin you back in the seat. Of course it does, it's a powerful car. But it doesn't feel out of control. It feels like you've done it. It feels you've made it happen, not the car's done it. You know, not like a gentle push and the car all of a sudden has just exploded. It's you as a driver that has made that acceleration happen. It's exactly the same with the brakes. Porsche have, you know, sort of like adopted the philosophy on sort of like brake regeneration of, there is brake regen, but it's in here, you've got to go and set it up, and it's one level. You know, so it's either on or it's off. Porsche's theory is that you're driving the car, if you want it to stop, you make it stop. As well as that, it is very efficient, especially when you're, you know, at higher speeds on open roads, to let the car coast rather than have it, you know, sort of like recuperating brakes, because then you're not constantly fighting against that and therefore using more power and using more battery. So it is in some ways the right way to do it, but that's Porsche's theory behind it. You're driving it, you make it stop. You're making it go, so you make it stop. It's responding, it's a car, it's responding to your input, it's not doing it for you. And that is what I love about the way that Porsche build electric cars. I think they've got it absolutely bang on. I think they've got the theory behind it right, and therefore the sort of like the practical side of it, the practice of it is right as well. That's how I feel, folks, I really do. So, the accelerator, really nice sort of like push. As soon as you push on the accelerator, you get this nice linear acceleration. It's not this constant explosion that happens. Same with the brakes. You know, I'm coming up to a roundabout here. I lift off the throttle pedal. There's no brake regen on, so the car is coasting. So, you know, it is now me that's just going to, there's nothing behind me. It's me that made it do that. You know, and again, it's a nice firm push. It's a nice firm bite that you get on the pedal. I like that. It's good. It feels mechanical, and that is what I like. The suspension and the body control on this car is very good. This is on the 20-inch wheels, I think. Yeah, this one's on 20-inch wheels. So the ride quality is actually very good. You can feel, again, you can feel what's happening underneath. You can feel the road surface. So there's just a little pothole there, you go over it. It doesn't jar through the car, but you felt the wheel go into it. So again, it's communication. It's communicating with you all the time. But there's the other side of it as well, okay? All right, we're on a, you know, just a 40-mile-an-hour road here, but I sit back, I'm in normal mode, and it's a really windy day outside, and there's no wheel noise coming into the car. You've got this refinement in it as well. You know that you could probably just load this car with the luggage, with your family, you know, stick some skis on the roof and then just head off into the Alps on a skiing holiday, and you drive down sort of, you know, the auto routes and the autobahns of Germany, or whatever, you know, and the car would be nice, it'd be quiet, it'd be refined, and it would just, you know, it would feel solid on the road. That's the other side of it. My point is, the whole thing feels like a Porsche, irrespective of what's fueling it. It feels like a Porsche, and that's the difference to me. That's what makes the difference. It's got beautiful turning, it's got the steering that's really nicely weighted. Yes, it's got all the safety systems that you'd expect, you know, lane keep assist, you know, it's got blind spot monitoring, it's got lane departure warning, all that kind of stuff. I think you can add even more to it if you really want. Again, obviously it's an option, because Porsche like charging you money. But it's got all the stuff that you would expect it to have, but it's not taking over from you. That's what I'm trying to say, perhaps rather inelegantly. It still means, it's still wanting you to drive the car. It's still saying, you're in control, you make things happen, don't expect me to do it for you. And you know, whether or not it's a 1970s 911, a 1980s 944, you know, a 1990s 968, or a current 992, 911, it doesn't matter, or a Boxster, or whatever it is, that's a Porsche. it's a driver's car. It's set up by people that know what people want, but it's not exhausting to drive. But nor is it intimidating in some respects either. Driving position is superb. You know, you sit, which hasn't always been the way with Porsches, in fairness. You know, I've got to be honest with you on that. You know, they've not always been the most comfortable driving positions in cars, but this one is. This is very nice. I like the wheel. I like the fact that, you know, Porsche just, you know, more so than say BMW with M Sport. This is the one thing that bugs me with BMW M cars is the steering. As much as I love them, steering wheels are too thick. It feels like you're holding a big fat sausage in your hand, and I don't want that. I want something, and that's where you get the feedback from. So you've got a really nice slender steering wheel, nicely designed, 3 spokes, nothing too over the top, not too crowded with switchgear and all the rest of it. So it just makes everything, you know, nice. And as you know, as you're you know, turning the wheel, you know, it's got a nice. You've got the feel. You can do it almost, you know, with your thumb and your forefingers. It still requires a bit of effort, you know, because obviously it's quite well weighted. You know, I fling it into this roundabout, you know, I can feel the steering now just weight up, that's my tripod, and then accelerate out, and now brake for these lights. Whoa. And that's it, you know, that's what I mean. It's just, it's a car that you have to drive. And that's what I think people are forgetting about with electric cars, you know, autonomy and things like that. You know, us at AutoEV, we're car enthusiasts. We still want to drive cars. We still want the cars to be fun to drive. We're just saying that actually, whether they're fueled by petrol or whether they're fueled by electric, they can still be fun to drive. It shouldn't be any different. And we're seeing that more and more. Hyundai Ioniq 5N, Taycan, you know, Audi RS GT, e-tron, you know, KEV6 GT, you know, Mini electric. All these cars, they're fun to drive. This is another one. There is different drive modes, and I will chat a little bit about that. So you've got, I'm in normal at the moment, so I go into sport, and then obviously, as you would expect, everything sort of sharpens up. You know, there's a little bit firmer, you know, it starts to be firm on the dampers. You also got the electronic sound as well. So as you accelerate, I'll need to let that car get past a little bit. You get that nice sort of digital noise that, you know, that Porsche have on their thing, and it. Whoa. I can't explain enough about this accelerator pedal. I really can't. As I say, it feels properly solid to use. It feels like a real driver's machine. Anyway, there we go. I won't go on about that again. So the last one is the Sport Plus. So this is everything, just getting all hunky-dory. I mean, this is you going for lap times now. And it stays really flat through the bends. I'm not on many at the moment, but I have been throwing the car around of late. It is now much firmer on its ride quality, because obviously it's firmed up the dampers. So you are now starting to feel much more, you know, much more imperfections on the road surface. Drain covers there, you know, all these bumps and ridges, I can now properly feel them. But, you know, obviously that's giving you the choice of doing that. It's quite addictive. I need to stop doing that. As I say, you almost don't expect it. You don't expect to have to, you know, if you had electric cars like a Tesla or something like that, you don't expect to have to put that much effort into the controls. But on the Porsche you do. And as I say, that's a good thing. Anyway, right, let's dial it back to normal. There's one last, so there's normal, sport and sport plus. So that's what all your modes do. As I say, they just sharpen it up in terms of increments, how you do. As I say, when you're in normal mode, the car is as easy to drive as you'd expect it to be. The last one is an off-road mode, which I'm sure raises the ride height of the car when it's on the adaptive damping, and also it will redistribute torque depending obviously on what wheel obviously it's on an all-wheel drive car. It will redistribute the torque depending obviously on what it feels is needed. So that's it. So yeah, it's a really interesting car, the new Macan, because as I say, what it is, because the Taycan was a new car for Porsche. It was a brand new model. It was something that we'd never seen from the company before, in some respects, because obviously it's a big GT car. Arguably the 928 was that. You know, the Panamera was already out. But it was a brand new, it wasn't an electrified Panamera. it was a new car, and it felt very different. It had a lot of the Porsche qualities that we saw from the car in a different sort of style of car. What the Macan is, however, is a current Porsche model, and a very successful one. Obviously, a lot of people have bought Macans, they do like them. It's a very, very big selling car for Porsche. Has it ruined it by going electric? Bearing in mind you can still buy a petrol one. No, it hasn't ruined it at all. What it has done is it has brought the Macan's driving feeling, the driving sensation of Macan to an electric audience. That's the difference, and that to me is the big difference with Porsche. They don't make electric cars, they make electric Porsches, and that's a big difference. And it's not until you drive one, dare I suggest, you start to appreciate how good they really are. And this one, well, this one's brilliant. Now, pricing. This is probably my biggest bugbear with Macan Electric. Now, Porsche's never going to be cheap. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not suggesting the car should cost less money. I'm talking about the value for money that it offers, and the things that you have to add to the car just to bring it up to a standard that I feel the car should be as standard, if that makes sense. Okay, so I've got the list here, so just bear with me on this. So you can get into a Macan Electric from £68,500. That's how much it starts at, you know, for the rear wheel drive car, okay? If you want this, the Macan 4, obviously the dual motor car, this is £71,200 starting price, all right? This car I've got here, however, is £83,049. Okay, that's a lot of money. Now, in fairness to Porsche, the Provence paint, this lovely shade of lavender, that's £1,185, and the blackberry and black interior, that's another £1,380 in that price. You don't have to have those. That's not what I'm talking about. You know, you pick a standard colour, a standard interior, and that's probably going to be all right. It's the optional equipment that I've got a bugbear with. Matrix LED headlights. Yeah, they're on the options list, £852. Why is Matrix LED lights optional on a Porsche? £1,283 for the panoramic sunroof. Isofix on the front passenger seat, 140 quid. That's standard on a Peugeot. Why is it optional on a Porsche? You know, the big bugbear I have is the one that I balk at always, is the £509 for adaptive cruise control. Why is that not standard? You know, no head-up display, that's a cost option. You know, as I say, I don't have a problem with the fact that Porsches are expensive cars. I have a problem with the amount of options you need to add to this car to bring it up to a standard that I feel that it should be at in the first place, and the prices that they charge for some of those options. So it's fair to say value for money is not a plus point with the Macan. Now, obviously, when it comes to the price point and, dare I suggest, the prestige of the Porsche badge, well, you've got to think about what competition that you might also consider when you're looking at the new Macan Electric. And there are some out there, maybe not as plentiful as you maybe think if you're looking at, you know, say a Volkswagen ID4 or a Skoda Enyaq. I don't think those kind of cars compete with it. A Porsche buyer's probably not going to consider a Volkswagen ID5. Probably not. Anyway, what would you consider? Well, I think you're obviously going to consider something like, say, the Polestar 4. A great car, you know, new premium sort of like badge, very sporty. Polestar's fastest production model to date, that more coupe-like SUV style of car. So certainly the Polestar 4 is within a shout. Audi, the new SQ6 e-tron, that's a car that you're also possibly going to consider. And remember, you can get it as either the Sportback or the full-size SUV as well. And that's a car that we're going to be testing. Unfortunately, we were supposed to be driving it in December. There's been a problem with the car we were going to be driving, so it's now January that we're driving the new Audi. So there we go. But that's a car also to consider. I also maybe think something like maybe say the Genesis, the GV60, you know, and its premium sport premium plus guys, you know, the fast one. I think that could be a car that you might consider. You know, it's that sort of more sporting style. Genesis are trying to be a premium brand. Certainly in fairness, the luxury is concerned, you know, the luxurious appointments inside the car. I can see that. And they're also going to be introducing their Magma range, their performance-orientated version. So yeah, maybe Genesis as well, something you would also consider. And if you are considering those and you're thinking more from the performance point of view, then maybe you might consider something like a Hyundai Ioniq 5N or a Kia EV6 GT as well. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Porsche Macan electric. Well, we like, on the whole, its design. It's typical Porsche interior. It's quite practical. Of course, its dynamics. Its electrical architecture is one of the best. And of course, the legendary Porsche build quality. We don't like, well, the level of standard equipment we feel is quite poor, meaning the options you have to add on push the price much higher. And could high depreciation be as much of a worry on the Macan as it has been on the Taycan? Porsche's decision to keep the combustion engine Macan on sale alongside the electric one might make you think that the company isn't as confident about this product as maybe that it has been about some of its other products in the past. And in some respects, you can kind of understand the viewpoint from that, because as a company, they have to make money, they have to be successful. And there's no doubt about it, there are still people out there that are still reticent about going all electric. And of course, with such an important model as the Macan, it's important that Porsche spread their bets, make sure that there is something there to suggest for everyone. Now, only you can decide whether or not an electric car is going to be for you, but at least you can have the confidence in yourself that knowing that if you want a Macan and you're not sure that electric is the way forward for you, then you can still buy one that's still fueled by the smelly stuff. But from a driver's point of view, they had nothing to fear, because what Porsche have done is they've done it again. They haven't given us an electric car, they've given us a Porsche that happens to be fueled by electricity. And there's a big difference in those two things. As far as we're concerned, if they had bet the whole house on this, they'd have been safe, because they've given us an absolute winner yet again. Thank you for watching another road test review from AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've then pressed the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way that you'll be notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've watched this week's video and you've enjoyed it, then make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of Porsche's new Macan? Is it one for you? Would you still prefer the combustion engine one? As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Now remember, we're also across all social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok even, we're there as well, so give us a follow there. And you might be interested in an electric car, but maybe not a new one. You might be interested in, maybe you're interested in a used Porsche Taycan, but you need to know all there is to know about it before you go and have a look at one. How do you find that out? Well, stay on the AutoEV YouTube channel. And at the top there, you'll see a little magnifying glass. If you type the name of the car you're interested in there, if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 4 or 5 years, then we'll have subjected it to the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for putting up with me in a multi-storey car park because of the bad weather outside. I do appreciate that. And as always, I'll see you again soon.